100. Can that be right?
Welcome to Hack Learning Uncut with your host, Mark Barnes, a man who's not afraid to say that grades lie, homework sucks, and traditional teachers should be suspended indefinitely. Now, strap yourself in, listen up, and let's hack learning.
Welcome to episode 100 of the Hack Learning Podcast. This is the uncut version. I thought long and hard about 100 episodes, and I know a lot of people do really special things for the big numbers. I know a guy named John Lee Dumas who does an entrepreneur podcast, and he does a show every single day. This guy's up into the thousands of episodes, so I would think he could celebrate every single day the big numbers that he has. And but he doesn't. He just keeps doing what he does. So I thought about it, and I was thinking about all kinds of different things, having a bunch of guests on, saying, hey, what do you think about hack learning? And, having a big love fest where people go, oh, hack learning is the coolest. What a great show. And it just didn't feel right. So I decided not to do it. I just thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go uncut because I haven't done that in a couple of episodes, and I enjoy doing it. And I just wanted to go ahead and record and not edit and not have a guest on and, riff a little bit like I do. And I think that's an enjoyable thing to do for episode 100. And we don't need to dwell too much on the number because I'm hoping that there will be 100 more and maybe beyond. So what I did think, though, is 100 is a lot. And, in about a year and a half, I've done now 100 episodes of this show. And I thought about why I'm doing it. When you do something for a very long time, if you're an educator, and you get to those milestone years, 5, 10, 15, you think, why am I still doing this? Why do I do it? Because I've been doing it a very long time. So I started thinking about what I do, doing this for 100 episodes. And, I'm a publisher. I work on hack learning books, find educators who have great ideas and help them take those ideas and, collaborate with my team, and we turn those into books. And that's what I love to do, and it's really where my focus is. So I thought about that. I thought, well, why am I doing this? And I'm happy to say that you're listening. And that a fair amount of people are listening. We're typically somewhere around 1,000 plays, I would imagine, per episode. So, that's great. And a lot of those people I like to think are repeaters. They've listened once and a show comes up and they go, oh, I'm going to listen to this again because I like it. So that's great. But, that's a good sized audience. So sometimes I say, well, I've got listeners. You think of your radio shows, and those radio show hosts talk about their listeners. So, and their listeners have expectations. So I sometimes I think, well, people are expecting something, so I got to keep going. And I don't know if that's really the best answer, to why I do this. So I was troubled by that a little bit when I got to 100. So, I said I wasn't going to talk that much about the 100 or dwell too much on it. And here I go. I'm just sort of talking about 100. But, I got to thinking about the question, I guess, of why do I podcast? Sort of a hack learning thing. We think of a problem and say, well, how do we fix this? So I approached it from that point of view. Why do I do this? I taught for over 20 years. And I know at 10 years and 20 and all, I asked those questions then. Why do I do it? And ultimately that answer was because I want to believe that I'm helping kids improve, because that's what I love to do. I wanted to help kids. And I think for the most part, I really felt that I was doing that. So why do I do the Hack Learning Podcast? And I think the answer is I want to help educators, So when I got to, well, there's a lot of listeners and they have expectations, I thought, well, that's a little bit shallow. I'm glad to have you listening. That's really important to me. But, does it matter that it's 1,000 people or 800 or 10,000? Would it matter if it were 2 or 3? And I thought about that. Would I still do this? I asked myself that question recently. I think there was an episode that didn't do as well as others, and I'm not sure why. I mean, obviously people didn't like the topic, but it was, I don't know, it had 600 or 700 plays in a week. And typically, as I said, we're somewhere around 1,000, 1,200, sometimes more. One of our episodes is really popular and is up, I don't know, 3,000, 4,000 now. But, I was frustrated by that. And I thought, people aren't listening, and why am I even doing this? And so I turned that question to, well, would you do this if you just had a few people listening? Would you roll out one of these episodes every week? And, I think the answer for me was, if those people, if you said, you know what, I like what you're doing, and it helps me, and it makes me better in some way, and I think you could bring me something, whether it's just you talking about your experiences or sharing a hack learning book or a hack from a book, or bringing on a guest educator who's really smart about something and them sharing their information. I like that, and it'll help me. I think that would be enough. So I guess my answer was, it's kind of like the teaching thing. Why do I keep doing this? Because it's hard. Teaching is so hard. I don't know that many professions that are harder. And we just came through a time at the time of this recording where there was so much disaster in the country. Hurricanes, ravaging parts of Texas, and then right behind that, hurricanes ravaging Florida and moving on up the coast, and lives being lost and all that. And I think these first responders, their jobs are just unbelievably challenging. I mean, and they face, death. So that's really hard. I don't want to take anything away from that. And there's so many other professions that are challenging. But for me, in my own experience, I think teaching is really, over the long haul, is maybe the toughest job there is. The challenges that educators face with helping kids every day and dealing with all of the different, the dynamics that kids bring. There's a ton of that. So, and then with parents and administrators and everything else, I think, that's tough. I just got distracted because my dog, who's been sick, is coughing in the background. See, this is what you get with Hack Learning Uncut. So, it's I'm not editing it out. So I'm sorry, I was distracted that. He's okay. But anyways, teacher's job is tough. And I think that, if you say, hey, I'm going to keep doing this because I embrace the challenge, and in the long run, if I help one kid, that makes a difference. I had a student teacher a long time ago, and we were having this conversation. And this occurred to me when I was grappling with this whole 100 and why am I doing the Hack Learning podcast when I have so many other things that take time. And I remembered this conversation, and this young teacher, she was, I don't know, probably 21, like right out of college. And she asked me this, we had some difficult kids, and she was talking about how hard it is. And, I had already been at it, nearly 20 years at that point. And she said, how do you do it? I just sometimes think, I don't know if I can do it this long because it's so hard. And why do you do it? And that was a great question to reflect on. And, I think my answer was, I know my answer was, I told her, I said, you know what? At the end of the year, I reflect and I think about all the kids. And I said, you know what? If I feel like I really made a difference in one child's life, just one, then it was worth it. And, a lot of people say, well, man, if you teach 100, 120, 150 kids and you make a difference in one, it sounds like a failure. But you know what? It's amazing what that difference can be. I've had kids who came through our school and then, graduated, and in their adult lives, I bumped into them. And I've had numerous kids tell me, you made a difference. Literally, use those words. You made a difference in my life. And because of this or that, I went on to this college, or I embraced this idea, or I got this job, and I really think you were a big part of that. That's huge. I think that's what it's all about. So yeah, would I keep doing this if you were the listener and you said this makes a difference? I think I would, because that's what this is all about, making educators better. And I think that if one educator benefits from the Hack Learning podcast, then think of how many lives that educator might impact down the road. So that's why I've done 100 of these, and hopefully we'll do 100 more. Thanks for coming along on the journey.
Thanks for listening to Hack Learning Uncut with your host, Mark Barnes, an edu hacker who says you don't need another 5-year plan. If you're crazy enough to want more, check out hacklearningpodcast.com and read a hack learning book today, will ya? The entire series is available at hacklearningbooks.com.